The Milwaukee Bucks just had an embarrassing finish to their postseason dreams, a 1 seed being eliminated in the first round by a team that barely won the play-in.
And the Miami Heat become the 6th in NBA history.
Now, yes, the Heat were clearly cut from a different cloth in the postseason than their regular game showings. But still, things started to smell stale over in Wisconsin after that. A franchise that had just won a championship 2 years ago has now seen early playoff exits since. Giannis may have won a couple of MVPs and a Defensive Player of the Year award, but even he can't seem to get this roster back over the hump. But now, as the offseason winds to a close, take a step back and look at this Bucks team. The front office didn't make any major changes, sure. It feels like they quietly cleaned up the edges, though. They got some new steady role players like Malik Beasley and Splash Mountain's twin Robin Lopez. But what I would say is vastly more important. Milwaukee finally has some youth to it again. It felt like every year the front office was putting older and older players around their 28-year-old star. These names might not be flashy, but that's not what this roster needs. It needs some promising young guys that can understand their role around Giannis. And the upside some of these guys might secretly have, well, that's just a bonus. Let's go through and showcase how this youth wave coming into Milwaukee could be the exact reinforcements the franchise needed. Let's start with the 2 rookies they drafted this year. Did that sentence shock you? Well, yes, you heard that right. The Bucks actually still have some draft capital after the haul they sent out for Drew Holiday and second-rounders for Jay Crowder. Their first selection in the 2023 draft was the 6th pick in the 2nd round. Hey, Bucks fans should just be thankful they even had 2 seconds to use this year. The early 2nd-round selection was Andre Jackson Jr. out of UConn. The 6'6" wing finished up his junior year as a co-captain of the national championship UConn squad. Jackson is that glue guy on the floor every team loves to have. He gives you a bit of everything on the court with minimal mistakes. During his last college season, he averaged 7 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists. Now again, these names aren't going to be eye-popping type players. But Jackson provides stability with a potentially sneaky high ceiling because at just the age of 21, this guy has a knack for making the right play. It's always either he knows where to be to get a timely off-ball cut to the rim, or he knows where his teammates are to sling it out to for a 3. Personally, his 3-point shot didn't necessarily fail last season, with UConn at just 28%. But what his offense might lack in shot creation from deep gets made up with his defense. At 6'6" and 210 pounds, Andre has the frame and mindset to be a reliable, all-around defender. Showcased by his box score wins being predominantly more positive in defensive win shares. Jackson will be able to slide into minutes off the bench next to other guards like Grayson Allen or Malik Beasley to be that defensive glue guy on the perimeter. Next up, we have the 3rd to last selection in the entire draft, the freshman from the University of Kentucky, Chris Livingston. Livingston is a guy with an impressive early career resume that could turn into a big-time steal that late in the draft. He went to Oak Hill Academy, was a McDonald's All-American, and was MVP of the USA's FIBA Under-16 championship team. At 6'6" and 220 pounds, he's basically a beefier version of his rookie Bucks partner, except that Livingston has an almost 7-foot wingspan. This guy is a nuisance in passing lines and contesting opponents' shots. In his single season at Kentucky, he kept opponents to a 37% shooting average. His frame allows him to be basically the epitome of what NBA teams need on defense. A guy who is fast enough for guards, but is long and strong enough for the new age point forwards. Milwaukee clearly had a mission with these draft picks this year. It's fair to say Livingston is even more raw on the offensive end than Jackson Jr. The franchise drafted wing defenders that have shown flashes of being able to put the ball in the hoop. I think what is key for these 2 rooks to end up putting things together and coming out as steals is their potential key mentor on the team. Drew Holiday is widely known as one of the toughest defenders in the league. Even though he's never won Defensive Player of the Year like Giannis, look up any interview of a player being asked who they hate going against, and 9 times out of 10, they'll say Holiday. Drew can put Jackson and Livingston under his wing and show them how to be productive on defense while putting the pieces together on offense. Where they're really getting the offensive production in their youth movement is AJ Green. The shooting guard from the University of Northern Iowa showed out in his rookie season with Milwaukee by shooting 42% from three, which compiled all but 0.6 shot attempts per game for Green. AKA, this dude is a sharp shooter. In his final season at UNI, Green averaged 19 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists. So clearly, he's capable of more than just shooting, but should still feel right at home sitting behind the arc for the Bucks, which is exactly what they'll want from Green. He'll be playing behind shooters like Grayson Allen, Malik Beasley, and Pat Connaughton, so his minutes might not end up being terribly high. But as a fourth option when guys start getting injured or ice cold, Green might not be a bad guy to throw out and attempt some heat check bombs. And speaking of heat checks, we got to talk about this next guy, because Marjon Beauchamp is coming off a rookie year where in the offseason, the dude dropped 83 in the crossover league. This dude might be coming for names next season. And yes, I understand the difference in playing level from the Jamal Crawford's Pro-Am League to the actual NBA. But 83 is 83. This wasn't some high school LaMelo Ball cherry-picking 92 points. This was an in-the-flow game, 83 points. One of Beauchamp's limitations on draft night in 2022 was his shot mechanics, but in these highlights in Seattle, they don't look too bad now. At 6'7" and a wingspan crossing the 7-foot mark, he gives Milwaukee a strong body to throw at forwards, while being able to keep a guy on the court with a high basketball IQ and sneaky ability to find himself at the rim. Currently, the other power forwards behind Giannis are Jay Crowder, Thanasis, and Bobby Portis if they want to go big. There's definitely a world with Beauchamp winds up being the second in command at that position. Crowder's shot was not failing for the Bucks whatsoever, and Thanasis' ceiling is clearly maxed out. Why not give more minutes to Mr. 83? I'll mention our final guy briefly before we get into my predictions for the Bucks this season. It's someone they seem to have an on-again, off-again relationship with. Lyndall Wigginton has been signed by Milwaukee twice now for a combined 26 games played. At 6'2" and 24 years old, Wigginton is the one I'll put the least amount of stock in, honestly. But his Iowa State highlights show an explosively athletic guard that can work around the rim and get his shot. If things go south during the regular season with injuries, they'll be glad they took a waiver on this kind of guy. Okay, now we can zoom back out and look at this team as a whole again. After going through those guys, does it still seem so doom and gloom? The Bucks were starting to seem worn down and unable to stay healthy, with their big four spending more minutes apart on the floor than together. But this subtle work at fixing their depth problem and pumping the veins with a bit of young energy could bring this zombie back to glory. Giannis is going to be Giannis. There are no worries about that. For all we know, he might be pissed about the first-round exit more than we think and come out and win his third MVP. He 100% has the ability to do so. Middleton is supposed to be the number 2 on the team. But honestly, with these continued injury problems during the playoffs, I've started looking more to Holiday than Chris. When he's on the floor, he's a perfect complement to Giannis's bully ball playstyle. If Middleton can stay on the floor and have some young defensive rooks behind him, they might be able to reduce the minutes he plays during the regular season to save him for the playoffs. The team might have sent a lot of their draft capital away to get guys like Drew Holiday and Jay Crowder, but they were still able to draft some potential eye-solid replacements for guys like Jevon Carter and Wesley Matthews. Plus, with the scoring of Green and Beauchamp, new head coach Adrian Griffin has more tools at his disposal than I think anyone realized. What do you guys think, though? Are you excited for this Milwaukee season and to see how these guys develop? Could the Bucks see another appearance in the finals after these younger replacements, or do you think the core is still too fragile and they need to make some bigger moves for serious contention? Let me know in the comments.